Welcome to the Impact of AI Explored podcast, hosted by James O'Regan and Gerjon Kunst. Created by and for IT professionals, we focus on how AI reshapes our daily work. With AI insights growing every day, we cut through the noise to deliver what matters most. Join us as we explore the latest breakthroughs, share best practices, and empower you to make the most of AI in your career.
In NVIDIA GPUs, any kind of GPUs. I work with anything from how you design the solutions from all the way ground up, infrastructure, and how you use them. So specialized in all the way in the backend, but also down to the end user and how you size and design. So it's anything from rendering to acceleration of application and also AI.
As a workload on the GPU.
And it's enterprise, all right? So a lot of the stuff I do is like private AI I work with. But daily, I consume GPTs and AI for my own consumption.
Sure. And we talk. I suppose that's what we wanted to talk to yourself today about is private AI as opposed to what enterprises are looking at now is more private AI because they can control it, all of those kind of different things, as opposed to using public models where there's just so many issues. So can you talk us through some of the things you've been doing in kind of private AI?
Yeah. So I've been working with customers doing private AI with actually VMware. So using the VMware private AI together with NVIDIA. So how you build it all the way up there. So that's typical by using NVIDIA L40S GPUs. And then because you are limited using something called MIC. So MIC is not supported on L40S, so then you use 800 GPUs. I've also been doing that. So that's when typical the models get larger and you want to do inferencing work, jobs, then you use that. So I have actually implemented that full stack with VMware. So we built the VMware.
We have you have a visitor behind you.
My daughter.
Let's not edit that out. That's too funny.
That's good.
Princess.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm out in my office. My kids will be back soon actually as well. So hopefully they don't come. They've been told not to come and annoy me. Sorry. Go on, Thomas. Sorry.
So I've been doing together with building it up on VMware platform. So how you use the entire framework there and with VMware vRealize, right? So how you monitor GPUs, how you automate the GPUs. But it's quite comprehensive when you build AI workloads, right, from scratch up, because you have to have a foundation in place, which is a hypervisor, and then you build a typical Ubuntu or Red Hat machines, right, and then you build your AI stack on top of that, and you also use typical Kubernetes. And further on, if you have workloads where you have multiple developers who want to then process the data, you can send it to something called Triton server. So then it's multiple workloads which get processed through, and then they get the jobs in a queue and process. So instead of doing typical AI, you would have a VM with a GPU. You would actually you work on, let's say, partitioning of a GPU, and then you work with the larger VMs with much larger frame buffers on where they get processed the AI workloads. I also worked a lot with NIM. So NIM, I don't know if you heard about that. So when you build NVIDIA AI Enterprise, it's a quite comprehensive stack depending on what you want to do. NVIDIA has pretty good documentation how you build it up from scratch. So they have these quick start books you can use. But the problem is all about what you want to do, right? What is your workload? What do you need to do, right? So it all comes down to what do you really want to do? And many customers don't know that. So then they try, different kind of things. Try it out. If you want, let's talk a little about how you use the AI enterprise. And I'm like, it's all about building a strategy around it. So I think that's why I'm like, NVIDIA have a lot of AI services, right? And they have microservices. They have these agents and so on. But I'm like, you have to still start from scratch one, which is called what is your strategy, right? What do you want to use AI for? And
let's use AI because we can. Let's use AI to fix a problem we have.
Yeah, but sometimes it also goes so fast where they're like, we cannot wait. We just want to build, right? Give us a platform so our developers can do AI. right? So I've done that. Well, we don't have time for an AI strategy. Let's just build and build something so we can have a playground, right? But the problem is the
Reverse
playground
engineer.
quickly becomes production, and then you scale up, right? And suddenly your environment is so small, and then you want to scale further up, right? And so that's where I help customers try to do those options. But the problem is doing AI right actually is super expensive, and I understand this is from a business side quite difficult to convince your management on, hey, do these large GTXs from NVIDIA where you have an NVIDIA AI box that I don't know but DGXs and from NVIDIA is like full certified platform, like in a box, right, with the network and cards and CPU and everything, storage. Uh, Quite expensive, right? Because how they start, that this is not a cheap option, but it might be the right way of doing it, right? So what typical customers do instead, they take typical, the VMware platforms or Nutanix, they put in GPUs, right, for AI workloads, and then they build. And I think it's a good strategy. But the problem is when you scale, right, maybe you want to go for this GGXs or HGXs. HGXs is where it's the OEM who then put the AI platform together with their stack, right? So Lenovo, Dell, HPE. Then they build that GGX with NVIDIA has, but it's them, building it in their architecture. So then it's like full system, right? With let's say 8 GPUs, right? Instead of doing like one, right? Like one, two, or four. Some customers are, and I fully understand when you look, it's when you want to start doing AI, that can be like, oh, that might be right? We want to do these like huge AI clusters, but those are super expensive, and maybe we don't know our workloads, right? But again, it comes down to the strategy. Like, if you did the strategy right, and if you did an assessment and finding out, how typical it will our workloads be, right? Then you can start sizing. So, and I'm like, this is the same thing we do in end user computing, right? You're like, if you want to scale VDI, how big will it be, right? Instead of just, let's try something, right? And then we do something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and that's what you were saying about these box. Those is a little bit more like hyperconverged infrastructure. So everything you get a box from NVIDIA, it has all the stuff in it. You just plug it in, and there we go.
but the problem is they start from 1 million, right? 1 million euro.
Oh,
Okay, yeah,
okay.
that's a problem.
That's a dent in the
That's a
budget.
that's a big problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so now you know what I mean.
So you have no strategy, and you said, but I'm spending €1 million. Okay,
But you
that's
can,
not going to go down well with
but
most
you but you
companies.
can turn around and say like if you will be spending the 1 million quickly by having um, multiple machines, right, and multiple physical servers where you split up your GPUs across them instead of being like super efficient and you're building these AI clusters, right? Which is the right way of doing it if you want to do mass scale AI, right? And I think this is where like this how we design AI clusters. That there's definitely a learning curve. So I also work with some companies where they do mass. Then they have their own data scientists, right? So I think this is where the companies they already have doing AI, right, for years, right? So some I work with, right, where their customers then they have thousands of GPUs for AI, right? Like thousands, right? So like 1 million doesn't matter, right? For them, they're probably spending
No.
hundred millions of your. I'm not kidding you, 100 millions of GPUs for AI, right? And but they also started one time, right? Everybody starts one time, right? Where they're like, hey, we do it with one GPU, and
See what happens.
then we start, right? So this is where cloud GPUs are great, right? Because we can provision it with these hyperscalers, right? In Azure or AWS or pretty much anywhere, right? There's so many different kind of GPUs. I even saw a Russian company where you can get access to the latest GPUs from NVIDIA with $2 an hour, which is ridiculous cheap, and they're actually not earning money on it. But that's a good example on where potentially you could do AI in the cloud and not you not be able to build the same thing with how cheap that is in the cloud. But the problem is all about security and IP, right? And then it comes down to this private AI. So if you're working with sensitive information of like citizen data or healthcare, military, right, or something like that, um, those kind of data is typical not for the cloud. So then this is where the private AI comes in, or even developers, right? I work with the companies building software where that software is in the cloud, right? They do as a service, mega platforms, but all the developers have their own servers, which is kind of funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they build up the entire company running in the cloud, but all the IP is running in their own data center because they don't trust the cloud, even though that's where the company has made all the money. So I think this is where this private AI is definitely a huge thing. The great thing about NVIDIA is they have a lot of tools how you can start building it, and I recommend that people start looking at it more. The problem is, typical developers, they use open source platforms instead, and Hugging Face and other things, right, where they didn't have it. The problem there is that actually you can have vulnerability with those kind of models, and suddenly you don't know if you then have a bad actor on your system. And this is a real case, right? So a company I met, they actually have built a software that can go in and scan if you use Hugging Face or GitHub, right, with the models there, and then they're scanning if you had a vulnerable code with your AI models. So they're called Trustworthy AI. They just got acquired here last year by Cisco. Took a little bit while for them to get implemented, and the reason I'm talking about this now is also because Nutanix, they made a Nutanix alliance where they made a product called GPT in a box 2.0. So this Trustworthy AI is actually part of that. The only problem is you need to buy a license for it, right? So Nutanix has licenses like this Pro license and Ultimate license, and I thought like that license, of the AI would be included. It is not. So you have to buy your own Nutanix AI license to get access to these tool sets. But the great thing about Nutanix is then you get access to automation, orchestration of workloads, and also securing your AI workloads from Cisco. So you get Trustworthy AI, and it's really expensive software. You get all that included on Nutanix, and I think so. The customers who are doing Nutanix as a strategy, I'm like, they should look at this, and I know many are not looking at it. So I'm trying, advising Nutanix customers who are doing AI, because I actually work with those kind of clients who does Nutanix, but they're not aware of that they can actually use these services. So they build it up with Kubernetes. They're doing it the right way, right, containerized, but they don't secure it, right? And I'm like, hey, there's actually some software available where you can increase security. You're already doing private AI. Why don't you do the full line so you do put into security as well, so you get compliant? Because that is actually the biggest risk, in my opinion, AI we have with all these LLMs and the codes. We have so many vulnerabilities. That's how NVIDIA is selling the AI enterprises. They take care of patching the codes and the packages, etc., etc. But reality is just, when you get hit by reality, is some developer goes up, download an LLM, Hugging Face, and then you might be compromised.
Yeah, because taking a step back, you were saying, okay, so if you want to do AI and you want to do it yourself, you could always start in the cloud to build your proof of concept, whatever. Once you get using the IP or the people, the data that you don't want to use in the cloud, run it on your own data center. And if you have VMware or Nutanix, you can use tooling they have available.
Yes.
And you could also use the Nutanix of the NVIDIA all in one box if you have a very deep pocket.
Yes, but the great thing, I think Nutanix has done some pretty strong alliances together with NVIDIA, Hugging Face, and the Trustworthy AI, which is with Cisco now, right? So I'm like, you're getting all these software in a box, and I really like that because it's all about how do you build and orchestrate and secure AI, right? And many don't talk about security in AI. If you really, really think about it, there's not many people asking questions about security in AI. NVIDIA set up with their private AI, enterprise platform. But
that covered.
Yeah, we actually had in our last episode we had Simon Binder on, and then it was all about security and how you can poison an LLM and that kind of thing very easily, and then the impact that has if a data set for an LLM is poisoned and the consequences of that. So yeah, I think there is some people. Simon's definitely thinking about it, and it was a pretty dark episode. It has to be said.
So but the interesting thing is, right? Sorry, it's called robust. I just look it up. Robust intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely a company that customers should look at, right? So when they came out first, they've been building the solution for a long, long time. Very smart people, like really crazy smart people. I had a meeting with them at Nutanix Next last year, but then the price model was I even some clients I work with, I was like, this is going to be quite impossible. And then he told me, we're closing the deal at Nutanix Next, and we partnered with GPT in a box 2.0. I was like, that is awesome. The problem is just that took 6-7 months before it got part of it, and now they also create a SKU for it, right? So they created a SKU, and it's part of GPT 2.0 in a box. This robust intelligence. But if you're a Cisco, let's say a Cisco partner, Cisco customer, so Cisco, you buy Cisco hardware, right? So then they're pushing it. But I'm not kidding you. I was in Amsterdam for an huge AI event last year, end of last year, right? And I met Cisco, and even there, nobody knew anything. It was still so new, right? But now I could see here because I follow them. So now they're ready, and I talked with Nutanix. They're also ready now, so they do ship. You can implement it. You can buy the license, and you can use it. So this is good time, right? And I'm like, it's a good time to do it now. But I'm like, the question is also how much does it cost? And I don't know that with Nutanix yet. But I am involved in the project, where. And even I'm not kidding you. A guy here yesterday also talked with me, right? Who are involved in these mega AI clusters, right? They advise, some very large customers, way bigger than I work with, and they're all interested in the security because they heard I was talking up last week in Helsinki with some AI people about it, right? So this security is I would say this is groundbreaking new field, right? And we need to educate and look at it better. But yeah, I'm interested in actually hearing what Simon had to, how do you secure it, right? Because I have not seen any products, not besides this robust intelligence. I have not seen anything who can scan.
Well, his philosophy was because there are no real products yet besides of those enterprise AI in the box thingies. He said, well, you have to be knowledgeable about the data you put in. So don't
But
trust
how would you
the
know that?
AI
I'm like,
blindly.
it doesn't take more than the developer downloading a model. He goes in
True. So
and talks together with
there's a
a
lot
GitHub,
of
and. So
yeah.
that's
No,
actually how.
it takes a lot of adoption and telling everyone to not put. It's just like with software. Just don't put it in production. It's good to play with. Just don't put it in production before you rigorously tested it. And using the Hugging Face models is always a bit tricky. It's open source, yes, so you should know where it comes from and you should know what it does. But it's what you said, James. If you build a model that has some biased or some wrong data in its LLM, then you can run into problems. But I think that's and it's a cool. We did a presentation last year where we told people that we think 2025 is the year of AI because we see a lot of stuff that is being built last year that's coming into fruition this year that's going to be big, and the stuff you're telling about is there a good alternative to public AI? Yes, there is. There's private AI, and now you can choose. You don't need VMware. You can also do Nutanix. You can
Yeah.
run it now. There was also a problem. Yes, it's expensive, but if you're running private AI, there's a reason for that, and that reason can cost money, I believe. But the thing I was wondering about the projects you were doing is that something you could tell about? Okay, what was the original business idea? Why did they want to use AI? What do they want to use it for?
Yeah, some of it is quite sensitive. Where
Yeah,
so
don't tell
I
what you can't tell.
cannot go into because if somebody found out, no, it is. I have to be really really careful. Uh, but I did think I actually said something earlier. So private AI is if you have sensitive information about citizen data, where you then want to look at let's say healthcare or other defense or something like that. So that is when if you build stuff within that kind of stuff, right? It has to be treated very sensitive, right? And that it's not typical GDPR compliant putting that up in the cloud, right? In Europe, maybe in the US, I don't know. This is not US, it's Europe that I work with this client here. And so it's for their own in-house development of the code, where they then are AI enabling their software. And this is a specific use case, right? But they are definitely, this customer is on a journey to AI enable the entire company. And it was for me, it was interesting seeing, where they started. It could not get big enough, right? So they just keep on scaling and scaling and scaling. But I think why it was good, I was involved because I helped build the foundation of it, and then they build on top of it. But having a foundation is then you can scale, and if you know exactly also what kind of models from NVIDIA, because they do have a lot of tool sets. So part of the NVIDIA enterprise, they have a lot of tool sets how you use different training model, or you want to do inferencing, or you want to scale. There's a tons of models there, right? So NVIDIA has all kind of, I couldn't say the names, Nemo, Riva, blah blah blah, Rapids. I'm like, it all depends. NIM is interesting. So I think NIM for inferencing, it's a microservice. So the other, so a lot of the stuff I built, right, it's typical like 20 software packages, and then comes Kubernetes, and then there's even further, right? So it's a lot of software you install. But with the NIM, so what they do there, NIM actually simplifies this entire software stack and put it together into one workload. And then it's really cool. But the problem was when I started working early with it, it didn't support vGPU, right? So some of the workloads we were doing was vGPU, right? And I thought like, hey, that will work with vGPU, right? And I talked with the NVIDIA people inside, like, oh, it's not ready yet, right? But it is supported now. So they have supporting the supporting NVIDIA AI Enterprise with vGPU now with NIM. So I think that stuff is quite important. If typically you want to partition your GPUs. Also for AI, I'm like, it's not everybody who want to take, a GPU that costs plus 10,000 euro, right, and give it to one user. If you keep on doing that, that's quite expensive. But there are customers doing that, right, where they don't have the luxury to partitioning. Because it comes down to how big the LLM model is. It comes down to how big the LLM model is. And also if you do Triton server, right? So then it's all about how many GPUs you put together, and then you get process your workloads.
And if you look at the NVIDIA Enterprise, you talked about the NIM. It's kind of a solution in a box. Does NVIDIA then also do the security bit? So they
do. So that's also exactly, they do that. So they take care of the entire scanning of the software packages. So I think that's the great thing about. So NVIDIA has on something called NGC, which is a catalog of microservices. So there they even have a containerized driver software packages, and then you can actually grab those with the APIs, and then you install the code. So they take care of the entire, patching it, certifying it, and that's why you pay the big bucks for the AI the VCS. It's called the VCS license, but it's the NVIDIA AI enterprise software component. The VCS is actually the license you put on the NVIDIA GPU, like vGPU, like A profile, B, RTX, if you're familiar with that. So then they have the VCS. Now the funny part is VCS actually used to be part of vGPU back in the days, right? So you could do compute on your vGPU, but then NVIDIA, they separated the VCS out of the license, and now it's a separate product, right? So NVIDIA Enterprise, the VCS, it has all this included, and tons of things, in the NVIDIA Enterprise. It's a huge software stack.
Yeah, so if you want to get started with the NVIDIA way, it's good to dive in, but it's a complex thing to master because there's a lot in it.
Yeah, but the good thing is, so they have all the models are running in the cloud, so you can actually quickly go in and actually try out their workloads. So it's anything from like audio to creating images or any kind of thing, right? They have all the workloads are fully available for free to test in the NGC.
That's
NVIDIA.
a tip for the Dutch listeners. You can test it for free. Dutch people like free
You
stuff.
can, and actually, back the
We
days
put it in the show notes.
the ChatGPT was limited, right? It's not that limited anymore, but with the queries, so that I actually used that instead because you had free access to. It's running in NVIDIA data center right in the cloud, and you can just go crazy without paying for it.
That's cool.
So it's a yeah, it's cool. So it's a good way of trying it out, and also where you don't have to install it. Now, you would then want to typical install it is when you want to build these custom workloads in your own data center, where you then say, hey, now we have all this, let's say a help desk. Okay, I want to AI enable my help desk, right? We have these huge data sets from our service desk. Then you can download the NVIDIA model, right, from the NCC catalog to your hypervisor on a VM, right? And then you put it together, and now you're AI enabling your company. So this is like a private AI, you're doing, right? And I think this is where it's a different approach than enabling it with OpenAI and GPTs and stuff like that.
AI foundries, yeah.
Exactly. So, but I'm like, it's also I'm like, it's you're first of all you're full control, secure, right? It's your own GPUs, it's your own software stack, and it's your own data. To be honest, I personally I like this better approach, where you're doing it in your own, and then you can also scan the stuff, without, let's say, it leave the cloud, and who knows where you run the workloads in the cloud, what's happening there, right? And then if other large LLMs gets access to the data, you're compromised, right?
Yeah, and the other thing you say, well, it's expensive, but at least you're on top of the cost. There are no surprises because you bought the hardware, you bought the licensing, it's running in your data center, and it does not use an infinite amount of. If you use an infinite amount of tokens, which in the cloud world mostly is per message, per token, parameter thingies, that doesn't matter because you're running it local. So have at it.
But let me tell you a fun story. So some of the very large AI customers who buy actually these NVIDIA in data center GPUs, they do also have access to the AI enterprise many times, but they don't use it because they don't know. So that's interesting for me to see and learn. Some facility providers I've been talking with who have those kind of clients where they don't know about it, right? And I'm like, but that's because they come from a different world, right? The developers works in open source, and they have their own models, and they're like, oh, that's, the NVIDIA tools. You're like, nah, we just want to do it open source, right? And I think that's so. Again, I guess it comes down to these data scientists, developers, how they work, right? And I think this is where, to be honest, this is where the IT departments, we as consultants need to help the IT companies operation, and then they help the developers about these services, what NVIDIA has. So there's a training path where the VMware administrator, Nutanix, which the operation who needs to know, because they need to know, what these services are, so they can help facilitate it. So again, comes down to the strategy. Comes down to the strategy again, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
how you enable AI. One thing is for the business, but also operation and the IT, and the user, right? So all these silos of how you are doing it and mapping it, I think is really important. But it's weird because many times I start in different cycles, where it's either could be the user or the C level, but suddenly it's just sometimes even operation, but nobody has time for anything. It's just like it has to go fast, right? But it should start operation.
Make it so. Yeah,
Exactly.
and you were saying about the learning path. Say we have a lot of developers or listening or to podcasts or doing a podcast. If you want to get started with this AI stuff that NVIDIA has, is there a learning path on NVIDIA that you can?
Yeah. So everything is available, full available. So I'm like, if you want to start looking first, the great thing is everything has available on docs.nvidia.com. And in there, they have in the data repository, they have the NVIDIA AI Enterprise. and there's a lot of data. Just want to keep you guys aware of that, right? But in there, they do have these, how do you start working and build up the foundation of it. But if you want to, start working with it, let me see here. So ngc.nvidia.com. So that catalog of testing and trying out the AI enterprise models, right? So that I think that's a really good place to start and seeing what do they actually have, where it's already built, right? So it's like something that's pre-built, you can use it. But when you then have to go down to an enterprise, right, you then have to install all the software components. But NVIDIA has all that documented as well. But they do have created these quick guides of how you build these layers. But it's quite comprehensive. Let me just. It's not simple like vGPU. I'm like, it's way more time consuming than building up a typical end-user computing stack. This stuff here is it comes again down to what you want to build, what you want to start, right, and then you build up a strategy. That's why I keep on saying the ngc.nvidia.com, because it gives you an understanding on which kind of workloads, what is the use case. Is this for audio, speech to text, or translation, or imaging? Is it a chatbot you want to build? Is it for some healthcare, or I'm like, there's so many use cases for this, right? It's an endless use cases.
That's really cool. And
right?
I was wondering, Thomas, because there's a lot of stuff running and you can run it in your data center. Do you have something that you can run on your own computer? It might need a GPU or an NPU or whatever, but what do you run locally on your? I can only imagine you have a very big desktop with a big GPU in with all these muscles.
Yeah, but I also do it in the cloud for the larger things. So I don't have the luxury of having. Well, I do, but it's crazy how expensive these when you first turn on. These. I don't have the large crazy GPUs. Not the 800. I don't have that kind of in my lab. The biggest I have is L40, but I'm like. But if you want to do like these mass GPU, I'm like just the amount of power you consumes, the electricity bill. I can't just
go through the roof.
I simply can't justify it running in my lab. That's why the cloud is so much better running it there. But there is.
Do you have anything running locally?
I do have things run locally, yeah. But I am a big consumer of cloud. So and I use also the big AI. But that's more. So I use a lot GROK, and I use also a lot co-pilots, and also ChatGPTs. And the funny thing is, I use the different models because I don't trust what they say, and also just to see what kind of output they're giving me, because they're giving me all kind of weird stuff. So if you are building PowerShell code or just looking at something you want to write a letter, or they're all giving different results, but they're getting better at it, right? And the same thing comes down to I also use a lot of AI. So I'm part of the different communities called Experts Live and UC Tech Denmark, where I'm actually the guy who created all the graphics. So I'm also actually a creator. I'm a huge creator by using video and imaging, and there I use AI. So that's actually something I've been doing, for plus 20 years. I've been an Adobe user. But the interesting part is I use AI for some stuff I create, and then I put my human touch by using the tools from the Adobe products. I still like using that because I'm like, I want to give that final touch. I'm faster building it still compared to the AI.
And are you using something like Midjourney, or what are you using on the AI side?
No, so I actually these days, I've never been like a huge fan of the Midjourney, which is kind of weird, I guess. But I think it's because I have access to both Adobe, right? Adobe, they have their own AI, but I don't think
Firefly, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think it's that good. So these days, actually, which is interesting, I use GROK. So GROK is actually scary good because it also now can produce text You can do pure text now. And text has actually been one of the most difficult thing in AI can do when they create an image. You know,
It's been James's pet peeve
This
for about
this is a
year.
pet peeve of this has been a pet peeve of mine for a very long time, because I've been using DALL-E, which is obviously built into ChatGPT, and I've been trying to do marketing stuff and get text on things, and it just gives you utter gibberish. And we actually looked into it on a previous podcast, and we'll link it in do a clip to it. But what happened was the models, when they were building the public models, they weren't training it on text, so it actually tries to discover what it is, and that's why it's doing an estimation of what it thinks text looks like. So that's why it's basically creating an image as opposed to text. So that's why it struggles, and that. But now, obviously, models are being trained on it. I think Stable Diffusion does it as well, pretty well now as well, with the latest Stable Diffusion models. So it is improving. But yes, I numerous.
Copilot doesn't do it. I'm like, Bing doesn't do it. It's really bad doing Bing and Copilot, and even the
Yeah.
GPC, right? Which is interesting. So let's
It is.
Grok, exactly GROK 3.0. So GROK is interesting because so I've been using the X AI first, right, when they have it, and I was like, it was not that good in the beginning. The GROK 1, 2, now it's actually version 3. But when he then built this, huge AI of these 100,000 and actually now 200,000 NVIDIA GPUs, which is like it's the world fastest and largest AI in one place, and actually it's reference now architecture for if you want to build an AI. There's even a guy who built a video where they go in and visit the data center, which is it's very interesting. If anybody want to see that, they should go on YouTube and look up the GROK AI.
I'll look at it.
It's really interesting. Yeah, but they're creating groundbreaking new architecture with both with the networking, and how quickly they've done AI in mass scale. So that's why I think it's interesting to look at how they've done that. Now, from a consumer side, right? So is that they have is my network bad?
No, it's all good.
No. It's recording locally and then it uploads. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, I'm doing all this. You have to edit. Anyway, so come back to the GROK. So the GROK 3, the interesting part there is it. So when they announced the free of the beta version, right? So they actually did a price increasement of the X subscription with 30% or 40%. And I was so like, what are they doing, right? I was like, I'm not going to pay crazy money for get access to these huge GPUs. But the good thing is, I guess, because of so much pressure, then they gave it away for free. So actually, anybody has access right now to the GROK 3, and you can even download a separate app, right? So it's not part of even X now. So there's a GROK app you can download and use it for chat. But I'm like, it's still, just keep in mind, from my part, it's like a prototype. But you can expect this will become very competitive, because I've seen how it does with imaging and how it does with text. And I'm like, some of the results it's been giving me is something I can use compared to the other models I use. And I think that's why I think it's interesting, right? I'm like, and I guess my advice is like, you should never trust just one tool. Use different tools so you can see, what is accurate, what is real, right?
Yeah.
Because humans still have a responsibility also to see, the truth of things, right? Like X is a good example on, do you trust it or not, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. I would generally use ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, and I would do if I was querying something, I do it across all three, and then I might take bits of whatever. I wouldn't just take it from the one. I would take it from multiples. So I think because we have access to all these different models, I think it makes sense to kind of vary them and kind of just use them, and some of them are better for different things as well. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of the takeaways if you want to build visualization. So give GROK a try.
Also, if you want to do imaging with the perfect text, it does it actually. And I'm like that. So I've been using it here for the user groups when I've been creating sponsor graphics or other kind of graphics, right? Where we've done announcements actually last year. And I was like, because I remember I used the other AIs, right? And nobody could do it. I was like, okay. Then I just typical go into Photoshop, right? And then I create the text. I was like, now I could just prompt it and it just creates it all. I was like, okay, this is insane, right? Then my time of the short, put it all, I don't have to go into the different things and then, put the layers, create them myself. I just prompt, right? And when we get to that point where we can full prompt everything, then it gets interesting.
Then it's a real time saver.
Yeah,
It is. And I think that's where we are right now. I'm like, but why are the other models still so bad with the text? That's something I don't get it.
I saw an interview with Sam Altman, and he said they are currently working on the next version of DALL-E 3 of DALL-E, and that they will fix that text issue in the next version.
But
so
if GROK can do it, right? That's why I'm like,
I know, but why is it taking others longer than that? I don't know. Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah. And with that, I think we've got a really cool episode in the bag.
Yep.
Thanks, Thomas, for your vision and input about running AI in your own data center and all the things, the good and the bad that comes with it, and how you can spend crap loads of money if you want to. So if millions are not a problem, call Thomas, because he knows where you get really expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone, you can try the NVIDIA enterprise stuff for free.
ngc.nvidia.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It'll be in the show notes.
And please, if you want to give GROK a try this weekend, please do, because because one of the things that we had a really issue with was creating the logo for this podcast, Thomas, and James was fighting with it, and in the end, we just did it ourselves. So, but we can give GROK a try. Perhaps it can make a better logo for.
Forget about it's Elon Musk. Just forget about it's Elon Musk, right? It's just
yeah. Let's block that one out, and then there's no issue.
Yeah.
So, and with that bombshell, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time, and with the next Impact of AI Explored. And have a good day, afternoon, evening, or morning.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye, everyone.